Hi, and welcome to my YouTube channel where I talk about all things to do with machine embroidery. This video I've made for all of the people about to purchase their first embroidery machine, or anyone who's already purchased that machine and now they're wondering what's next. When I bought my first machine, it was the smallest machine on the market, and it arrived and I realized that I couldn't use it because I didn't have any of the extra materials you need in order to use your embroidery machine. Machine embroidery is a fantastic hobby to get into. You can create personalised gifts to give to friends and family, or you can turn your hobby into a side hustle or a full-time business. This video is going to feature my large multi-needle industrial machines, but everything that's said in this video applies to single needle hobbyist embroidery machines as well. So no matter what type of machine you are beginning with, this video is here to help you. The topics going to be covered in this video are threads, stabilizers, other consumables, basic digitising, and some troubleshooting in case you need it. I'm starting with threads because when I purchased my first embroidery machine, I bought it online, and when it arrived it came with loads of threads which I thought were meant for my machine, which I just bought because that would make sense, but in fact they were sewing threads. So when purchasing your threads, make sure that they are machine embroidery specific threads. Some brands I would recommend are Isocord, Madeira and Kingstar. These are just thread brands that I have used and found to be good quality. There are other brands out there that I haven't tried and may also be good. You should also try and stick with a brand rather than swapping between brands. I ended up settling for Madeira because it's a great quality thread, it has a lovely shine and it comes in a wide variety of colours. Something I would avoid is buying unbranded thread. I wasted a lot of money trying to save money by purchasing unbranded thread on eBay, and with this thread I kept getting thread tears and other issues. When starting machine embroidery, just like any other hobby, you're going to encounter issues, and by purchasing a good quality thread, you just know you're setting yourself up on the right foot. Once you've got your thread, you're going to have to buy a stabilizer. In nearly every scenario, you're going to have to use some sort of stabilizer. It's sort of in the name what they do, they stabilize things. Stabilizers support your designs as they provide a foundation for your fabric and prevent shifting in the material and distortion in your designs. There are lots of different types of stabilizer available, but the two types that I use the most are cutaway and tearaway. Cutaway stabilizers provide a sturdy backing for embroidery projects across many different fabric types, as it's one of the strongest stabilizers. You really see the benefit of a cutaway stabilizer on woven stretch fabrics. Once the project is stitched out, then you can cut away the excess stabilizer from the edges of the design. Tearaway stabilizers, in my opinion, are more convenient because you can just pull them away from the edges of your embroidery and they give the embroidery a cleaner finish. Both types of stabilizers are available in different weights, and the relevance of this is usually you choose a heavier weight stabilizer for a denser design. More specialized stabilizer includes water-soluble stabilizer. I would use water-soluble stabilizer as well as either a cutaway or a tearaway stabilizer, not instead of, as soluble stabilizer sits on top of the material while a cutaway or tearaway stabilizer goes underneath. You would use a soluble topper stabilizer on a material like fleece or something that has a thick pile that your embroidery stitches might sink into and disappear. Soluble stabilizer helps lift your stitches out of the material, and then you can just remove it with water. The next essential part to machine embroidery is bobbin thread. Bobbin thread is an underthread, and it's typically a lighter weight thread and usually comes in white or black in colour, and you can purchase bobbin thread on large spools which you can use to wind your own bobbins on bobbin winders. As you can see, my embroidery machines come with built-in bobbin winders, or you can purchase pre-wound bobbins from most embroidery consumable suppliers, and they come in boxes that look like this. More than likely, your new embroidery machine will come with its own needles, but if it doesn't, or if you need to purchase more, be aware there are different types of needles. The universal needle I'm holding in my hand has a flat side, and this one is used on my brother embroidery machines. And there are industrial needles which are completely round at the top. The needles do have to be inserted into the machine in a specific way, and in addition to these two shapes, there are also different types of needles that have been specialised for sewing on particular materials, such as sharp point and ball point, and thicker and thinner needles. But we'll go into that in a different video because it's quite a big topic. This isn't a general example of hooping because I'm using a specialised magnetic embroidery hoop, which I'm aware some people don't have. But the order in which we insert our materials into all embroidery hoops is the same. So you start with the stabiliser. You can either use 1 or 2 layers depending on how dense your embroidery is going to be. And then you place your material on top before clamping the top of the hoop into place. Then you need a design to bring to life. Your embroidery machine reads information in embroidery files and then stitches it out, sort of like a big printer. If you have a multi-needle embroidery machine, you will assign each needle a corresponding colour, and the machine will switch between the needles and stitch out the different colours in your design. If you have a single needle machine, then each time there is a colour change, the machine will stop and you will have to swap out the old colour for the new colour in the sequence. Embroidery files can be purchased online from lots of different locations. If you Google machine embroidery files for sale, then lots of different vendors will come up and you can find what you need on their website. Just be sure to always check the reviews before purchasing, as just like everything else in life, some sellers can be more reputable than others. It's important to remember that your embroidery machine might use a specific type of file. For example, brother machines use PES files. So when you are purchasing a design, make sure that you're downloading it in the format your machine can read. And if in doubt, download the design in .dst format, as generally DST is a universal format that most embroidery machines can read. Also make sure that the file you're downloading fits within your embroidery machine's sewing field. If your embroidery machine has a maximum sewing field of 13 centimeters by 18 centimeters, for example, then you don't want to buy anything larger than that, as it won't fit in your embroidery hoop and you won't be able to embroider it. Sometimes you can resize an embroidery design and make them bigger and smaller, but I wouldn't recommend adjusting the size of the design anything greater than or less than 10% of its original size, as this can lead to distortion. If you are an artistic person and you want to turn your own artwork into embroidery designs, not just purchase ready-made designs off websites, then how do you do that? To turn your own photos or drawings into embroidery files, you will need a digitising software. And a digitising software is usually an additional purchase to the purchase of the embroidery machine. It is an additional cost. But with digitising software, you can import your artwork and then, using the program's tools, trace your image in stitches to create a design that's unique to you. I have done a few other videos regarding digitising software where I talk about it in more depth. I will leave those in the description down below. The digitising software I mainly use is something called Embroidery, and you can see me using it in the video right now. This particular software cost me about £300 to purchase, but there are lots of different digitising softwares available. Some of them are relatively inexpensive, and then others can cost as much as £3,500. So it's worth having a good look around to see what's out there and making the choice of what digitising software you purchase based on your own individual needs. I love having the ability to turn my own drawings into embroidery files. I think it gives me a lot of freedom. And also sometimes if you purchase a design that isn't quite right, then you have the ability to edit it. And speaking of things that aren't quite right, for this next troubleshooting section of the video, I tried stitching out one of my designs and to make it as bad as I possibly could. In fact, it got so bad that I stopped stitching about halfway through because I didn't want to waste any more material, but you'll get the idea. So this is the design as it is meant to look like, and this is the start of the deliberately botched design. As you can see, there is lots of puckering, some bobbing issues and some registration issues, and we're going to be talking about all of that now. Starting with how to fix the issue of puckering. Puckering is when the material no longer lies flat and kind of folds into these weird like pleats you can see around the edge of the embroidery design. This is caused by the material moving around as the needle is coming down and then getting trapped under the needle. It can also be caused by overstretching the material when you are hooping up the garment. I have done a more in-depth video on puckering, which I will leave a link to that down in the description below. But generally speaking, in order to avoid puckering, don't stretch your material too tightly in the hoop and use a stabilizer that is appropriate for the material you are embroidering onto and appropriate for the weight of the embroidery design. In the example above, I have used no stabilizer at all, and that is why it is so severe. Another common issue beginners have is, why is the bobbin thread showing on the top of the design? And there can be a few reasons for this. White thread showing on the top of the design is almost always a consequence of tension issues. Sometimes thread, like stray threads or dust, can get stuck in your bobbin casing under the tension plate, and you need to clean that in order to correct your tensions, because that little bit of dirt or silt is interfering with how the tension is applied to your bobbin thread. Once you can be sure that your bobbin is clean and that there's no dirt interfering with the thread's pathway, if you're still getting that white thread showing on top of your design, then it might be time to adjust your thread tensions, starting with the bobbin thread. And if it's still showing like not quite correct, then you might need to adjust your top thread tension too. Again, I've made a more in-depth video about this and I will link that in the description. But don't ever be afraid of adjusting your thread tensions. I know some people say they haven't touched their thread tensions since the machine left the factory, but you're going to have to do it at some point, and so it's worth learning how to adjust your tensions so that they are appropriate for your machine. Often, if you switch thread brands, then you will need to adjust your tension to suit your new thread brand, which is usually why, like at the beginning of the video, I said I chose one brand, Madeira, and I stuck with it. Gapping between colours in the design or registration issues are also things that can be resolved by using the correct stabiliser. On the example of the well-stitched design, you can see that the three little dots are in the centre of that purple line, whereas on the design that I didn't use any stabiliser on, you can see that the dots have on occasion shifted to one side. If you have purchased a design from a respectable embroidery design seller, then these issues are usually resolved by proper stabilisation. However, if you have digitised the design yourself and you find you're getting gapping or registration issues in the design, then usually it is down to your own digitising, as long as you're confident that you have stabilised the design properly. And on my digitising software, the way I rectified this is by adjusting something called the pull compensation. And I have another tutorial about how to digitize designs. I will also leave the link for that down in the description below. This description is getting rather long now with all these links. And the last troubleshooting point I want to cover is if you start getting a lot of thread tears. Your needle, according to some people, should be changed every 8 hours of continuous use. Personally, I don't do that. I only start to change my needles after I get maybe 3 or 4 consecutive thread breaks. I just think my life is too short to spend it continuously changing needles. I hope you found all of that information helpful. If you did, then please consider giving my video a like. And if you'd like to see more of my content, then please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I think my next video, I'm going to make one covering stabilizers, as it is a much broader topic than what we just kind of glanced over in this video. So if that's something you'd be interested in learning about, then please subscribe, and hopefully I will see you guys next time. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.